In a world reshaping alliances and recalibrating diplomacy, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio embarks on a pivotal journey to Israel and Britain amid a crescendo of international pressures over the Palestinian question. Against the backdrop of the United Nations adoption of the New York Declaration endorsing a two-state solution, Rubio's visit signals Washington's strategic intent to counter rising global recognition of Palestine. As Britain edges closer to officially recognizing Palestinian statehood unless Israel holds its Gaza war, and with the U.S. aligning closely with Israeli interests, a critical question emerges. How does Rubio's diplomacy in London fit into the broader U.S. strategy? And is human rights justice sidelined in favor of the political calculations? Tonight, we probe the motives, the impacts, and also the implications of Washington's delicate balancing act. I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi. Welcome to Think Tank.
Our world is becoming unhinged.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is set to visit Israel amid heightened tensions following an Israeli airstrike in Doha and targeting, of course, Hamas leaders, which disrupted ongoing ceasefire and detainee negotiations. According to the Times of Israel, despite U.S. unease over the strike, the State Department emphasized Rubio's mission to reaffirm America's commitment to Israeli security and counter-actions recognizing a Palestinian state. The visit comes just before a UN summit where several Western nations are expected to recognize Palestine. Rubio will discuss shared U.S.-Israeli goals, focusing on preventing Hamas from resuming control in Gaza and securing the return of detainees. The trip highlights Washington's prioritization of strategic interests over the growing humanitarian crisis, navigating complex regional dynamics, including strained relations caused by the Doha strike. Joining us tonight to untangle the complexities of Washington's current Middle East diplomacy are two leading experts, Ihsan Al-Khatib, political science professor from Kentucky, and Jill Emmanuel Jacquet, vice president at the Geneva International Peace Research Institute. Now, their insights will help us illuminate the strategic calculations behind Secretary Rubio's visit to Britain and Israel, the repercussions at the United Nations, and of course, the broader implications for the Palestinian question amid a volatile geopolitical landscape. Welcome to Q News. I will start with you, Professor Al-Khatib. Now, how would you characterize Marco Rubio's diplomatic agenda in Britain and Israel at this very moment, this critical timing? Do you believe that Rubio's trip is more about international image or strategic leverage?
Thank you for inviting me. And
the
issue for the U.S. is that Israel has become a bigger challenge. When you have employees with love people who make their job easier, and your friends that make this friendship costly, you'll have problems with that. Israel has become a big liability, has become a full-time job for the U.S. The focus of the U.S., the strategic focus is China and how to counter China. But then you have this tiny country in the Middle East that basically is diverting the American agenda. The U.S. wanted Abrahamic peace agreements and trying to have some kind of resolution to the Palestinian issue. Trump was sincere about it, and he wishes that would happen. But the Israelis have a different agenda, and they don't care about the priorities of the U.S. But the nature of the political system, the U.S. has to support Israel, has to defend it. It creates problems, but then the U.S. has to clean up, just like with the attack on Qatar and the headache that the U.S. has to deal with an important region in the world. So now Rubio has to go and has to coordinate with the Israelis. And again, I think most of the communication between the U.S. and Israel is giving advice to the Israelis, telling them what to do. But then the Israelis always have the attitude, give us the money, give us weapons, and keep your advice to yourself.
Exactly. Well, Professor Jakay, how does the New York Declaration change the international framework on Palestine, in your own opinion?
Well, the UN General Assembly resolution is, in a way, a historical step because it shows that for most of the international community, at least 142 countries, the issue of the Palestinian sovereignty and statehood, or independence more simply, is legitimate. However, if you may, I'm not very optimistic about that because UN General Assembly resolutions are not binding. So it's just like a kind of statement that other countries should follow, that they are invited as well to recognize Palestine, but it has no legal force. Moreover, if you look at the other conditions put in these UN General Assembly resolution, like disarming Hamas, it can only be done if there are very strong security guarantees provided to the Palestinian side, like, for example, support to unified Palestinian armed forces. But as long as Israel is not as well holding any ceasefire, not entering into any significant negotiations or talks on the hostages, or more simply as well on the borders, which are another important issue. And with what happened recently in the West Bank, I'm quite pessimistic, in fact. It's a nice statement, but I'm not sure it's going to have real political effects.
Professor Al-Khatib, what are the core motives driving the U.S. opposition to Palestinian recognition at the UN? What role does Rubio's visit actually play in countering international moves towards the recognition of a Palestinian state?
The train has left the station. The U.S. will have so much difficulty countering the momentum. There is a momentum in the world, and even if it's like little action, that's not big, isolated. If you leave a bucket, there's a leak. Leave a bucket in the morning, you'll find the bucket full. The changes are important. And the importance of these changes, you can discern from the reaction of the U.S. and Israel. Israel has taken the global change very seriously. The U.S. has taken it very seriously. This is not a minor change. This is a massive change. Yes.
Allow me to interrupt you here, Professor. You mean change? People's putting pressure on their governments, not waiting for governmental actions, while there are other governments, such as Spain, for example, that has recognized the Palestinian state. But in other countries, the popular pressure perhaps is there. It's very clear. This is what you mean by change?
Yes, it's a change. Yes, governments changing, the population changing, public opinion, in the U.S. Now people are more emboldened to challenge Israel. The image of Israel the perception of Israel has changed. The measures, they're going to be concrete measures. It's not just a statement and then everybody goes home. I think this is something to build on, and I don't think that the sentiment is just a passing sentiment. I think we're heading toward more difficulty for the U.S. and for the Israelis. Now, the membership in the UN, that's a very big deal for the Palestinians to be a full member of the UN, because if they are a full member of the UN, then they can invoke the charter to ask for countries to help him end the occupation. I mean, ask for military support. Mahmoud Abbas can ask for armies to come and help Palestine and the occupation. So that's why the Israelis, that is an existential problem if the Palestinians become a full state member, and the US will never allow that, even though the international sentiment is clear, they want Palestine to be a member. But if they are a full member, then they can get weapons, they can fight the Israelis, they have a legal right to kill the Israelis. The PA has the right to ask neighboring countries to come help it, other countries send it weapons. And that's why it's clear in the charter. It's the individual right to defense and the collective right without even permission from the Security Council. This is why the US said, well, we're helping the Ukrainians. The UN Charter allows us. We don't need the UN resolution. Where the UN Charter allows the right to self-defense, and other countries can help the country that is violated by other countries to engage in self-defense. That's why the Israelis panic over Palestine a full member. That's why the US prevents it. Had it not been for the US veto at the UN, Palestine would be a member, and Israel would not be a member of the UN. But the Security Council has to kick a country out of the UN. It can be done with the UN resolution, but it's a big headache. The US is dealing with a big problem, and it's taken a lot of American time. And Americans don't appreciate that the Israelis are making their life hard and harder with the passage of time.
Yes. Professor Jakay, what role is Britain playing now in the evolving debate over Palestinian statehood? You just told us that you're not very optimistic about it, but let's see how you see this issue.
Well, the decision from the British government is not as well a big surprise, because in the United Kingdom you have as well a significant Muslim population that is quite, let's say, touched, quite outraged about what's going on in Palestine, and the British government is forced in a way to take that into account. But once again, it doesn't mean that it will necessarily lead to the not just a recognition of Palestine as such, but the ability for Palestine to enjoy truly the rights that other states can enjoy as well. And we know very, very well that London is always very close to Washington when it comes to many international crises or conflicts, should it be, for example, in Ukraine or in the Middle East. So I think the approach of the British government in a way milder, sounds and looks different than the approach of the US government. But I don't think it's a real genuine support to a Palestine statehood or a functional Palestinian statehood, especially as UK for sure will push for the disarming Hamas as well.
Professor Al-Khatib, how might Rubio's discussions reflect the Trump administration's broader Middle East security priorities?
That's the key issue. The US looks at the region. The US has a different way of looking at the region and at the world than the Israelis. The Israelis, the closed-minded, narrow-minded. There's a prime minister focused on survival, staying out of prison. There is a cabinet. There is a bunch of extremists in the government that are focused on stealing as much Palestinian land as possible, killing as many Palestinians as possible, trying to ethnically cleanse Palestine as much as possible. And that's not the American agenda. The US looks at the globe. It's a superpower countering a rising China, has friends in the Middle East, has friends Egypt, the Arab Gulf, the Arabian Gulf, the oil, the gas, strategic, the important region over the decades, the U.S. balancing act between this Israel and the interests with the Arab countries. And that has been a challenge sometimes, but now it has been extremely difficult. So he has to go try to talk sense in the Israeli head. But I don't think it's going to work. The Israelis know that they have a lobby, Jewish lobby in the U.S., and that Jewish lobby is still strong, that the Likud supporters are still dominate the lobby, and they have the money, they have the influence, and they will keep pushing the administration to defend the indefensible. What Israel is doing is indefensible, and that has really embarrassed France, it embarrassed Germany, it has embarrassed all these countries. Even Germany came out strongly and said, no, we want Gaza to be rebuilt, and the Gazans are not going anywhere. And that's Germany, that is a big supporter of Israel, and that's the #2 supplier of weapons to Israel. So the Israelis are in a very difficult position. They are not winning the war. They're not winning the battle. The defense minister under Biden, he advised the Israelis, he told them, you're winning the battle, but you're going to lose the war, basically, if you continue doing what you're continuing. And they have lost the war. The Arab position, and again, we are 1948 in reverse. Today is 1948 in reverse. At the time, the Arabs said no to states, no, we want all Palestine. The Israelis said, okay, we'll go with the division. But the whole world was on the side of the division. Therefore, the Arab party lost. Now it's in the reverse. Now the Arabs are saying 2 states. The Israelis are saying 1 state, and they're fighting the whole world now. They are going to be on the losing side. They can't win in fighting the planet. They can't win in fighting the UN. The UN created Israel, and now they want to fight the UN. They want to fight all these countries, and it's not going to be a war that a battle that they can win. Even if the US is on their side, they are fighting an increasing sentiment. It's like, when you go to the Lebanon, there's something called the rock. And this rock was constituted over erosion, over time.
Yes.
Even the rock was eroded, and the shape has taken
But
form
Israel won't.
from little by little.
But Israel
And
won't.
the
It's too
Israelis,
arrogant.
now the Israelis are facing real change and real threat. I think that it's not the attack of October 7th, it's the clumsiness and the arrogance of the Israelis that created the problems for them. The attack by itself actually was good for them because everyone was supportive of them in the US, in the West, but they responded with the genocide and attempted ethnic cleansing, and that is definitely not acceptable. It doesn't matter who's doing it. It doesn't matter who's the victim. It's the idea of you don't do that. You just don't do that.
Okay. Professor Jakay, do you see Rubio's visit as prioritizing Israeli security concerns over justice, over the humanitarian situation, over everything?
Sure, and if we look at the whole U.S. position on this matter, since as well let's say the first statements of President Trump, when he talked about the Gaza Riviera, it's a clear violation of international law. It's a violation of the UN Charter. It's a violation of most humanitarian principles because it means acknowledging ethnic cleansing and exchanges of population that are banned. So I think that Rubio's support will be clearly to, let's say, strengthen Israelis' positions at the expense of international law. We have, not just NGOs or reporters, but we have as well several UN agencies. We have the Catholic Church, we have the Orthodox churches there as well, like the Greek Church as well. They all report the famine, the ethnic cleansing, the people being killed, and the food distribution of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. We saw different videos.
The deliberate starvation.
Yeah, we heard as well testimonies from civilians, but also from people who provide medical assistance, like surgeons. They talked about people being wounded just to the leg or just to the hand, like there was a kind of game played by the IDF. And I'm a bit, once again, pessimistic, sorry, but we know now it's a genocide. I'm not sure something will be effectively done and consistently done. So what we see is, at least for Gaza, but it could be the case in the West Bank, if not the disappearance of Palestinians, disparition or extinction of Palestinians, how many Palestinians will remain in the end? How many?
And for how long? True. Professor Al-Khatib, is there room for compromise on the Palestinian issue with the current US policy, or you don't think so?
The problem is getting with time, not getting smaller. That's the issue for Israel. That's the issue for the Americans. This is not something that will go away. The Israelis said clearly they are going to fight for years. The former spokesman for the State Department under Biden, Matthew Miller, said the Israelis told us, Netanyahu told the Americans, told them that Israel is looking to fight for years, not 1 year and two. So they
For
are
what?
looking into
Fight for what? What's the end goal?
Exactly that's what the Americans told them. Exactly that's the question. They said, "Oh, what's your end game?"
What's the end game?
Domestically, what's the end game? That's what they say, end game, and Netanyahu has no answer to it. Netanyahu wants political survival. This cabinet is not normal people. These are extremely arrogant radicals in the Israeli government, and they think that all this killing is good. This is not a problem that's going to be resolved. The Israelis are definitely on the losing side, despite the immense suffering of the Palestinians. The Israelis are definitely losing and will keep on losing. Between the river and the sea, you have 7 to 8 million Palestinians. And even if they take over Gaza, now they are occupying Gaza. Now they have to take care of 2 million Palestinians. As an occupying power, they're going to be under pressure, under criticism. You have to take care of these people. You don't want UNRWA. That means Israel has to build the schools. Israel has to build the bakeries, has to feed these people, and has to build the school and the hospitals. Do the Israelis want that? They don't want
Actually,
that.
they are destroying what remained on the ground.
Exactly. So that is the American saying is when you're in a hole, stop digging. But the Israelis keep digging. Their problem is only going to get bigger with time. They are not winning. The killing, the destroying a tower here and there. That is not that's not an achievement. I mean, this is not a political. This is not victory. The question is. What's the end game, as you asked, and the world is paying attention. This is not the world attention temporary and then people forget about it. This ongoing conflict. And the Israelis, but the worst part of it is that U.S. Strategic approach is not to expand the conflict, not to expand it. The Israelis from day one have been pushing to expand it. They don't care what the Americans want, and now the chief of staff is saying that basically they will kill Hamas anywhere in the Middle East. So you're talking about 17 to 18 countries. That's the battlefield of the Israelis. This is a serious headache for the U.S. and this is a threat to international peace and security. That's exactly why we have the UN Security Council, so that no country can do that.
Yes.
And Americans are left cleaning up after the Israelis. And I don't know at what point Trump is going to say, I'm tired of this. That has to end.
We'll just have to wait and see. Perhaps any kind of pressure, but we'll just have to wait and see. Professor Jakay, how has the recognition push actually affected Israel's diplomacy at the UN? Because we're just speaking at the role of the United Nations here.
Well, I'm not sure it's going to affect Israeli diplomacy seriously in the short term. In the long term, it could change. But once again, if it's up to the General Assembly, the only tool in the hands of the General Assembly would be to refuse to let Israel sit in the UN General Assembly every year. These you have like kind of applications or credentials from states that are reviewed, and some states can be barred from participating. And this idea was submitted to some governments. I'm not remember if it's Indonesia or Malaysia that pushed for that last year. But until now, nothing concrete has been done, because Israel as well enjoys in the UN, and especially in the UN Security Council, where the real decisive decisions could come from, well, they enjoy US support. We know that more and more countries are not much at ease in maintaining some political or diplomatic relations with Israel. They're thinking about the future, what could come, especially after there'll be, let's say, a possible recognition of genocide in Palestine. How would other partners of Israel react? That was in kind uncomfortable situation. But once again, if we look at, well, the real decisions are taken, it's in the UN Security Council, and as long as the US, have these veto rights in the UN Security Council, they always use it to protect Israel.
Of course. Professor Al-Khatib, how does Washington's position influence its global leadership image that it's trying to present to the world?
Again, the issue for the US is the reputational damage, not only the financial cost. It has cost the US billions of dollars that the Israelis are fighting in Gaza. Even the weapons, the bombs that the Israelis are using, I mean, that's depleting the US. The U.S. Weaponry. I mean, they need the U.S. is planning to fight one day China, and they're running out of bombs because they're giving them to Ukraine and to Israel. And the Israelis have used a massive amount of ammunition. I think Witkoff mentioned that there are 30,000 unexploded munitions. 30,000. So imagine how many they used. I mean, the U.S. taxpayer is paying for them. The U.S. needs them in case there's a conflict with a great power such as China, but it has cost the U.S. a lot financially, in military readiness, the weapons that even those weapons that were used by Israel to repel the attack by the Iranians. These are all weapon systems that the U.S. needs. So the U.S. is running low on certain weapons and certain munitions because of Israel, and this is open-ended. In addition to the reputational damage, you have the International Court of Justice, you have the UN, you have the International Criminal Court, you have human rights organizations, and the U.S. is isolated. The U.S. is defending the indefensible, standing with Israel against the whole world. That causes loss of soft power. It's not just hard power that the U.S. has. It has soft power. It has always talked about breached international law, human rights, and all that, intervening in countries' business over one person being detained. Then the U.S. will make a big issue out of it. Oh, this person is detained. Oh, this woman cannot drive in Saudi Arabia a long time ago. And now there is a genocide in Gaza. And now the Israelis are killing people seeking food, making people walk long distances to grab food. So either you starve to death or you get shot. Food. So now it's impossible situation for the U.S. The deep state, American Defense Department, State Department, they're not happy with this. They're not stupid people. They're patriotic people, but the politicians, unfortunately, beholden to the Israel lobby, the Jewish lobby, they keep staying on the Israeli side against the whole planet, basically.
Yes. Professor Jakay, we're running out of time, unfortunately, so I want you to give me a very short answer to this question now. How might this diplomatic stance affect the broader Middle East peace efforts? A country like Israel that has been carrying out a complete genocide in Gaza, attacking other countries like Yemen, like Iran, like Lebanon, and Doha, Qatar. So what is the stance now in the Middle East? Peace chances in the Middle East now?
Peace chances are very low, and the situation and these recent Israeli attacks will push Arab states and especially GCC countries, will push them to take a clear stance because they realize in the end that US military and security guarantees and the Abraham Accords are not at their benefit, are at their expense in a way, and more at the benefit of Israel and US influence in the region.
Well, that was a very good answer. I'd like to thank you so much. So I would like to thank my dear guests today for being with us. But before I go, I have one question for you, Professor Khatib. Very quickly, could Rubio's visit affect European countries' approaches to to recognize a Palestinian state?
They're trying to do damage control, but I think that train has left the station. I think it's going to be very difficult for the US to have these governments go against popular opinion, against even politicians' opinion in governments and in the parliament. So it's going to be a tough sell. The Americans are going to try to do some damage control, try to have these countries take weaker positions on Palestine, but I think that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because these governments are accountable to their people, and the public opinion has shifted. I think the Arab and the Palestinian Muslim position has never been this strong through the decades of confrontation with Israel. I think Israel is in trouble, and the U.S. is part of the problem, unfortunately. When the U.S. pressures Israel, the problem will be solved. There is hope if the U.S. does that. Until then, the Israelis are going to keep digging a bigger hole for them, and the U.S. will keep trying to help them, but it's going to be increasingly more and more difficult.
Definitely. I'd like to thank you so much, Professor Hassan Al-Khatib. Thank you so much. And also Professor Gilles Manuel Jacquet for sharing your experiences tonight and your valuable views regarding our issue tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of today's episode of Think Tank, which always unveils the complexities of our changing world. I'm Hera Al-Hamalawi. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned. More updates will come your way here on Qnews.